The desert was a living thing, breathing dust and silence beneath a bruised, red sky. The wind moved like a whispering ghost, brushing against the wooden fences of a forgotten cowboy town called Satori Ridge. Out here, love was rarer than rain, and every heart carried a scar of something it couldn't forget. Among the scattered souls of this land rode a man named Rehan Cross, a wanderer with tired eyes and a quiet fury burning in his chest. His coat carried the color of storm clouds. His boots the memory of miles walked alone, and his holster, well, that carried the stories of sins he never wanted to tell. He was known to some as the Dust Cowboy, but to himself, he was just a man trying to find one reason to stop running from his past. That reason came on a quiet evening, when he rode into Willow Creek, a small settlement at the edge of the wild. The tavern light glowed golden through the haze, and the faint notes of a harmonica drifted into the open night. That was when he saw her, Alina Vale, the sheriff's daughter, standing by the wooden porch with her white dress fluttering against the dusk. Her eyes, deep as the canyon shadows, carried both defiance and innocence. She wasn't just beautiful, she was dangerous to a heart like his. For a man who lived by the gun, love was always a fatal wound waiting to happen. Rehan stepped off his horse, brushed the sand from his coat, and looked up as she turned her gaze toward him. The world slowed. The music faded. In that single heartbeat, the storm in his chest found calm. He didn't speak, neither did she. But something the air shifted, like two old souls recognizing each other after lifetimes apart. Later, when the night deepened and the stars opened across the sky, he'd find her again sitting by the saloon's lantern, humming a song so soft that even silence leaned in to listen. "You ride alone, stranger?" she asked, her tone half curious, half cautious. "Always," he replied. "It's easier that way." Her lips curved into a knowing smile. No one rides alone forever, but Rehan had learned otherwise. He'd seen men die for love. He'd seen women wait for ghosts. Still, there was something about her, something he couldn't ride away from. He didn't know then that she carried a story of her own. Secret buried deep beneath the red dust of Satori Ridge. Days turned into weeks, and the small town began to whisper about the quiet cowboy and the sheriff's daughter. Every glance between them was a poem, every silence a conversation. They met by the river that cut through the valley, its water shallow, but its reflection deep. "You don't belong here," she told him once. "Maybe not," he answered, "but maybe I've been riding all my life just to find this place." The horizon stretched wide, and their love began to bloom like a stubborn flower in the desert, fragile, yet alive against all odds. But destiny has a way of testing what's real. One night, the sound of gunfire shattered the peace. Bandits, led by a ruthless outlaw named Cole Maddox, stormed into Willow Creek, hunting for gold and for Rehan. He'd crossed them once, years ago, and they never forgot. The flames rose high, the town screamed, and the echoes of chaos filled the air. Rehan's instincts returned. He drew his gun, eyes burning with the fire of both love and vengeance. But when he saw Maddox aiming toward the saloon, toward Alina, he knew what he had to do. He rode straight into the storm, bullets grazing his coat, dust swallowing the world around him. In the chaos, he found her trapped behind the saloon wall. "You shouldn't have come," she cried. "I told you I never ride alone anymore," he said, pulling her close as the firelight danced on their faces. The battle raged till dawn. When the smoke cleared, the town was half in ruins but alive. Rehan stood bleeding under the rising sun, his gun empty, his heart full. Alina held his hand, her tears mixing with the blood on his sleeve. And for the first time, the desert wind felt soft. The morning after the fire, Satori Ridge stood in a silence that felt like prayer. Smoke curled from the ruins of the saloon, and the ashes still carried the warmth of the battle. The townsfolk moved slowly, rebuilding what was left, but their eyes often turned toward one man who stood at the edge of the ridge looking out into the endless desert. Rehan Cross. His coat was torn, his hands blood-stained, but his gaze was steady. But it's the kind of calm that comes only after you've faced death and chosen life. Beside him, Alina Vale watched quietly. Her white dress was now gray with soot, yet her presence still felt like dawn breaking through the dust. "You saved them," she said softly. Rehan didn't answer. He looked toward the horizon, where the wind carried faint echoes of the gunfire that had faded with the night. "Maybe," he murmured, "but the desert never forgets. The dust remembers every drop of blood it drinks." For days, Rehan stayed in Willow Creek helping rebuild the town. He mended fences, carried timber, and spoke little. But every night he'd sit outside the sheriff's porch, where Alina would bring him coffee, strong, bitter, and silent. They didn't need many words, some heart-spoken glances and shared quiet, in the weight of moments that said more than any sentence could. Still, Rayhan knew peace was never meant for men like him. Maddox's gang was gone for now, but outlaws had a way of multiplying like shadows. He could already feel another storm brewing beyond the hills. And inside him, an older storm still raged, one that had nothing to do with bullets or gold, but with guilt. One evening, as the sky turned a bleeding orange, Alina found him by the old water trough polishing his revolver. "You're leaving," she said. It wasn't a question. He paused, the metal glinting in his hand. "If I stay, more trouble will come. Men, like me, carry ghosts that follow close." Her eyes searched his face, calm but trembling beneath the surface. "And what if this town? What if I want you to stay?" He looked at her then, really looked, and in her eyes, he saw everything he had lost: home, forgiveness, a reason to stop running. "If I stay," he whispered, "the desert will find a new way to take it all from me." Alina stepped closer, the distance between them closing like a held breath. "You can't fight what's already yours, Rayhan," she said. "You saved us. Maybe now it's time to save yourself." That night, under a sky littered with stars, Rayhan made a choice, not between love and survival, but between running and redemption. He left his gun on the sheriff's table. The same weapon that had once ended lives would now mark the beginning of a new one. When the dawn came, the townsfolk found it there, clean, oiled and silent beside a folded note. It said, "Only, tell her the wind will always bring me back." Weeks passed. The desert healed in its own slow, stubborn way. Flowers returned by the river. Children laughed again in the dusty streets. And sometimes at sunset, Alina would stand by the ridge, eyes on the horizon, watching a lone horse ride through the shimmer of heat, too far to be certain, but close enough to hope. Because some loves don't end, they just learn to ride with the wind.